Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Be not wise in thy own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel, and marrow to thy bone. Hello, and welcome to the show, Steps to Leap podcast. My name is Rochelle, a follower of Yahweh, a wife, a mother, author, and a three-time stroke survivor. My sickness tried to keep me down, but I just look up and leap. Why steps to leaps? Let me break it down for you. Your steps are believing negative advice from others, making timid moves, blocking your way to success, and not having confidence in God and yourself. Your leads are having positive people around, making boss moves, striving to be successful, and most importantly, knowing whom will be with you and that you are awesome. So we will hear from some amazing guests and their amazing stories, testimonies, and journeys. Here now we have Amanda. So now we're going to have a little bio about Amanda Trought. As a six-time award-winning mixed media artist, Amanda, a London-born artist, has been creating for over 20 years and collaborating with a variety of artists around the world in group, as well as solo exhibitions in London, Barbados, U.S. Virgin Islands, and Montserrat. She received awards for her sculptures in the National Independent Festival of Creative Arts, and that is in Barbados, that is NEFCA, and the Central Bank Crop Over Visual Art Festival, Barbados, for her sculptural art and textile wall hanging. She has also had her work published in 4 books: Zen Doodles, Tons of Tangles, Zen Doodles, Oodles of Doodles, 1,000 Dog Portraits. Sometimes I wrote poetry, and also the Barbados Nation Better Health magazine on the effects of art and health. And we're going to start with the first question. Choose one word to describe Amanda before all of your accomplishments, and one word after to describe you after.
Okay, if I was to choose one word that I've now given up, it would have been insecure. And so the word after would have been confident.
Wonderful. That is a wonderful answer. And you see the contrast in the words. Okay. So now can you tell us a bit of yourself, your hobbies, and what you like to do?
Okay. Some of my hobbies. Well, everything I do is around art. Art and creativity, making things. I love making things. And being a mixed media artist just fitted me really well because it allows me to experiment and use all the different supplies. Because when I first started out, there were so many things. There were so many things I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be a jewelry designer. I wanted to make clothes. I wanted to, paint portraits. I wanted to draw. Graphite, and then if you think about all the other supplies, So a lot of what I do is around art and creativity. I write as well. I've got a blog that I've been writing about my experiences, the work that I do, um, looking after my mother who's was living with dementia. In terms of hobbies now, I love gardening, and that's my second love. Or on a par with my art. But in the garden, I love to grow all the different types of food and fruit trees that I can't grow in England, and or that I've grown up knowing about. So all the tropical fruits, it's just like, oh my gosh, I can grow that. Um,
Yeah.
so gardening, reading, I love reading both fiction books and learning about my craft, and non-fiction, learning about how to be better in my business and the work that I do, my time management. So and at the moment I'm trying to look at how I use my time, because it's just like, how can I fit more things into the day? So just better looking at systems and practices that I currently have, um, and how can I fit in more things. So I found that at one point I wasn't reading as much as I want to read. So it was just like, okay, so how can you schedule that into your time during the day? Getting up a bit earlier, writing. I love writing in my journal. So as I said, it's quite a lot of things that I love doing. So yeah, I love, yeah, doing art, anything creative, and anything to do with the garden.
That's wonderful, wonderful. And who will know about my other channel, One Hand, One Handed Garden, will know garden. I love gardening. So
Mhm.
yeah, that is good. We are going to talk about one of your leap, and that will be your spiritual leap. What year did you really leap in your spiritual life?
um, the year it was probably, I think it was 90, in the 90s, 98. So I think I had always been searching. I'd always been searching. I knew that, it was bigger than me, that I wasn't just, I didn't just evolve out of a little, I don't know, slug or whatever, what they, the, the, but I knew that there was something greater than me that I didn't know how to find. So I went through a lot of different kind of, practices, and, joined different groups. And then I think it was, we joined my brother-in-law's church. My brother-in-law was a pastor, and my husband came home one day and he said, I've given my life to the Lord. And I was just like, have you? It's like, so what does, so how do you feel? Um, and I was just like, how different do you feel? And it was something that he couldn't describe. And it's something that, like, then when I was like, I went to visit my brother-in-law, and then we had a chat. And then it was just like knowing that you were in the right place. And so he talked me through, what was involved. I made the decision. I, accepted the Lord into my life, and then I was baptized. And it was on my baptism that I came out of the water, and it was almost like I felt invincible. Like I
Yeah.
was waiting to hear. Like, I didn't hear what I thought I was going to hear was, angels singing and a chorus and everything. But I came out feeling, it was almost like, yeah, I can tackle the word. I can do anything. Um, and that was the leap into, being a child of God, into my faith. And as I've grown over the years, so over the years I've grown, and understood more and more. But I feel that it could be a lifetime. You could go through a lifetime and still not understand the ins and outs of God. So it's a continuous journey. There's not like a final destination. Every day is an opportunity, and just every day is an opportunity for us to learn something more about God and for what God has placed in us. And every day I get a different glimpse of what God sees in me, and that's what then propels me forward. That is the thing that gives me confidence, that I know that what I see of myself is far less than what God sees in me. And if I can only get that shift of perspective, there's nothing that we can't do. And God tells us in his scriptures, like, that all things are possible for those who love God, all things, so yeah. And I just see it as a partnership, I can't do anything without God being in the mix. I can't. There's things. Our understanding, in terms of your understanding, I wouldn't be here without him. I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing. And there was also a shift in the way that I do my art. It was just like, I would come to my studio. Well, at the time it was my kitchen table, and it was just like, I have to paint a portrait. And now the way I approach my work is allow God in first. God, what do you want me to do? I know this. I know my tools. I know my supplies. So I'll prepare the background, and then I allow whatever needs to come through to come through. So I may see an image, I may see a scene, I may, write a poem or whatever I feel that God is inspiring me to bring forward out of using my creativity, using my hands, using my thoughts. So that is, that was the journey, and that's how I've kind of just allowed God and the Holy Spirit to just take charge of our lives. And I know that whatever comes out, the things that I'm creating now, I would not have, if I were doing it in my own strength, I wouldn't be creating the things or having the ideas or mixing, clay and fabric and the stitching and all of this kind of stuff. It's all been inspired by God.
Yes, and isn't it wonderful when you come out of the sea from or the river, wherever you get baptized in, and you feel the zeal to do everything that you want for God. So that feeling is something you can't explain, but you can only, if you go through it, you will understand it. So I know how you feel. Before you came to the Lord, what was happening at that point, or what propelled you to come to the Lord?
Well, there wasn't anything as such. I mean, I'd had my son. My son was, say, 2, 3 years old. So I was just living life. I was looking after my son. I was, I think I had just been made redundant from a particular job, or let me think. No, actually, yeah. So I had my son. I was studying. So I was studying for my degree, and I was working part-time. So that was, and I was just rushing around. I was rushing to take my son to nursery, rushing to get on the train to get to the university. And then after university, so I was doing my course. It was a full-time course, but the hours actually, God was working in my life even then, and I didn't even realize it. So I would rush to uni, and I would always be late because I would have to get my son Sakani there by 8:30. It couldn't be, too much earlier. So by the time I got on the train, I was always getting into uni like 15 minutes late, and the class was packed. So I would always say, I would always pray. I would say, Lord, even then, even though I didn't know him as well as I was like, Lord, can you, I pray that there was a window seat available because I'm so hot now and sweaty because I'm running down the road and running, a lot of running. And then I'd get into the classroom and there would be a seat. It would just like every seat was taken, but the seat by the window was free. And so I'd
Mm.
sit down and a cool breeze would come and blow, and it would be just like, oh my gosh. And this didn't just happen once, this happened multiple times. So I know that God was working there. And then, and even just in the, as I said, I was doing a full-time course, but I was able to get a part-time job, and the hours just fit in. Like I was doing 2.5 days uni and then 2.5 days at work. And yeah, I was able to manage that and then juggling picking up Sakani. So it was that was happening. But as I say, I didn't, it was just like I didn't acknowledge to myself deep down, like, God's working in your life, like God's calling you, like,
Mhm.
have you not heard him? Um, so it was that, it was I was just getting on with stuff. And I think as well, the other thing was that my mother was beginning to show early signs of dementia, but it wasn't um, so bad that she couldn't be on her own. She was still living independently. Yeah, so it was those kind of things. Nothing. I was going to say nothing traumatic, but I was just getting on with the day to day,
Yeah.
and
Life was
yeah,
happening.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. After you made that leap, did you find that you were thinking and doing actions different than before?
But when I became saved,
Yeah.
um, I guess I felt a bit more. I felt I had more authority. It was like I was walking
Okay.
around with authority, and it was just like I couldn't understand why people couldn't see, what was missing in their lives. And I was like walking on a bubble, or walking on a cloud, but realized it didn't last as long as I thought it should have lasted, because then the life, the reality of the environment that you're living in, like,
Mhm.
you go to church and you're surrounded, and church is full of people like you and me, who we all have faults, we all have things that we're working through. And so it was just like, why isn't everything perfect? I've accepted God in my life and now everything should just be perfect. And people, you shouldn't have disagreements with people, because everybody should understand, that, like you say, you might say something and somebody takes it the wrong way, not the way that it's intended, or, just people do things based on, their perspective of life. So that was the only thing. I walked around with authority, but I was confused as to why people you know weren't all everybody. Yeah, as I say, everything wasn't perfect, and that's not the environment or the life that we're in. We're all imperfect, and we're all just striving to be better. So it took a while for me to realize, well, and why can't I hear the angels? Why, when I walk into a room as a child of God, doesn't the angels go before me and oh, and man just walked in and but it was understanding that, you know, again, my relationship with God was the main and was the most important thing, and that everybody has to work out their relationship with God. So you have to, there's give and take. Like I have to see that, you know, wherever God caught that person at that particular stage of their life is where it is. And we don't just all suddenly have, amazing relationships because, I'm saved and, or whatever. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I understand because you have not really a false idea of coming to the Lord. Yes, the angels are always around us, and we get answers and things, but we have to work to that point to understand really how the angels work for us, how the Lord works for us, and everything. So it takes time. I don't think that any person who just who come to the Lord one day knows everything.
Mm,
As
mm.
you said earlier, you have to learn and more and learn the Lord more. Did your family or some of your family and friends have any problems after you were saved? Did they have a problem with this new Amanda?
They there was two conversations I had. One was with my brother at the time, and it was just like I think I was going on. I think I was going on, and sometimes you can like act not the term I don't even know what term to use, but I guess I was not being judgmental, but it was just like yes, and the Lord's doing this for me, and the Lord's doing that for me, and it was just like you know um the holier than thou. I think that was one of the terms that um, they was thrown at me, or the but it wasn't holier than thou. It was just I was just so amazed at what God was doing in my life and getting to know the knowledge of being a child of God, or the knowledge of who I am in God now, and the knowledge of myself was just like I was so amazed at it. But I was saying, God, we can't do anything but for God. And their viewpoint was that we're doing it, where you're physically getting up and doing this particular thing. It's not God. And I was trying to say to them, but God has given me the ability to do it. Yeah, but you had the ability already. So it was those kind of discussions where people can't quite understand the relationship that you have with God and what that means when you allow the thought of God into your life, and then how amazing it can be. So I think I began to say that it's not everybody that I can talk to. So
Mm.
who I'm supposed to minister to might be different from the people you minister to. So I would say, there are certain conversations. I'll still be the same person to my brother, or to anybody who friends and family. I'll still be Amanda, but I'm approaching things differently. I see things differently, and that's who you have to accept. So I didn't have the case of where I had loads of people against me, and the whole family was this and that. We grew up in a household where we visited church. um, we weren't religious as such, but my mum made sure that we, because my mum had to work on the Sundays, so she made sure that we either went to church, or there was a lady from a church who would come round on a Saturday and give us sort of like Bible study. We never really thought about it. We just, it was just something that we did, but it wasn't something that, you know, um, sometimes if we didn't go to church, it was like it wasn't anything. As I say, because Mum had to work on a Sunday, it was just like. Um, but yeah, it was. I think So there wasn't, as I say, any kind of big barriers against going to church um, from family members or from friends, um, and I just spoke out. And as I said, if there was somebody who, because I was still learning as well, I would say, yeah, I don't have all the knowledge to give you the question that you ask. So it's best that you ask somebody who's more experienced, or who has more understanding of the Bible. who could maybe answer that question for you. I just know what I know. And what God's teaching me, I'm still learning. It's just like you don't ask a baby to recite the encyclopedia, maybe
Yeah.
when it's 10 or older. But yeah, I was just taking my baby steps and just being who I was trying to be, who I felt God wanted me to be. And that's changed over the years. The more I understand my relationship and have a better relationship with God, that's kind of changed over the years. But I'm still growing, even at the
Yeah.
age that I'm, and I still
Yeah.
will grow. Up until the day I draw my last breath, I will still be learning about God and who I am in God.
Yeah. Yes, and that happens a lot when you are a different person and you goes and you want to share and let everyone to know about the good news. And some persons, you might rub them the wrong way. They will still love you, they will still like you, but sometimes they say, this new Amanda or whoever, I'm something that is bothering me. Sometimes that is the Holy Spirit trying to talk to them too,
Mm-hmm.
through you as you're sharing. But sometimes persons are not at the same, not at that time. They're not ready to accept the Lord. So some you will win for the Lord, others you will have to wait, and others you will lose. So it's just like. Did you encounter any trial because you came to the Lord? Did anything, any obstacle or setback?
um, I wouldn't have said so. I just saw the things that happen as a part of the life that you have to find ways to deal with. I wouldn't have said because I, you know the Lord, that there were certain setbacks now in my life. It was, again, you're going through and I don't see everything as, oh, that's, the enemy has done that. It's just like I did my uni, came out of uni, started working, and I was made redundant. I think I've been made redundant quite a few times, but I didn't see that as a setback. It's just part of experience in life. And I think everything is. And you then know whether you have to lean on God in everything. So when I was made redundant, I leaned on God. When I was working, I leaned on God. When I wasn't working, um, you see that all. I see everything that happens to us as an experience that we learn from. So I didn't take being made redundant as rejection. It was just like, okay, it's time to. When I was made redundant the last time, it was just like, now's the time to become an artist. That's what you wanted to do all this time. You see everything as a learning experience, and obviously there are some terrible things that happen to people, and you have to find the whatever nugget is there, or whatever learning you can about yourself. Like for every person that I've lost, I've lost a best friend, I lost my brother, my dad, now my mum. It's like I remember the good things about them, the things that they taught me, the love that they gave me. So in every situation, I try and look for the learning. What can I learn from this, and what can I grow? How can I grow from this? Or what is God trying to tell me? I think the passing of my mother, which was recent, I the feeling of loss is not as I miss mum, but it's a different feeling. Now she's not here, it's a different feeling. It's almost as if, because I used to talk to her every year for the last 4 years, I wasn't able to visit, and then we had the pandemic in between that.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if every day she joins me in my garden. I was talking to her about the garden and what I'm growing and how I want her to come and dip her feet in the sea. And it's almost as if she's actually joined me in the garden. So it's like I never feel I I feel when I look through some pictures and stuff, I feel, oh gosh, I remember every time, every photo I've taken, I remember that time. But I also feel mum's here with me. So, yeah, as I say, I look at every situation and try and see how I can learn from it. What has it enabled me to do now? Or what kind of a person am I through going through this? So yeah, that's how I look at but there's no like I've been persecuted because I think we're lucky to live in a country or countries where we're not persecuted for our faith and we're not having to hide. um so yeah, I just look at everything else as a learning experience that is to take me through to another time. What can I learn from this to go on to the next thing? It's almost like gathering tools. I see it as gathering tools and armor, and God tells us to put on the armor of God. So how is this preparing me for what else might come?
Uh, that is so wonderful and beautifully explained. Yes, whatever happens in life, I always say, whatever the Lord does or allow is for us to learn from and is for our benefit. And everything he does is well done to me. So it's good that you are realizing that and you are learning. And as you say, gathering, that's wisdom every year. So that's the wisdom that I want us to have. So we have talked about your leap, the first leap into the Lord, to Yahweh, and everything that He wants you to learn and grow from, and even to share, because your art is a tool to share. We are going to talk about your business, your channel, your art. Can you share what year or when did you decide to leap into being an entrepreneur?
Okay, so in 2007, as I said, that was when I was made redundant, and I thought to myself, well, what is the point of going into another job that you don't want to do? Um, it's you have skills to do different things, but what is it you really want to do? You have the opportunity now. I had an opportunity to make that decision, and so it was just like I want to be an artist. I've been doing art alongside every single job. I work, get up early, go to work, stay up late to do my art. So focus on your art now. And it took, yeah, I then started learning everything I could. I tried different things basically. And then I found mixed media. The idea of mixing different mediums together and creating it was just like I felt like I was home. I knew that was what I wanted to do. And then I just started creating. I started making cards at first. And then I thought, oh no, I want to be a jewelry designer. So I started buying all these beads and making jewelry. And then it was just like, this doesn't feel quite like it. And then, as I say, the mixed media art, combining different mediums and art journaling and things like that. And then I was painting as well. And then there was something else that it just didn't sit right. It just didn't feel complete. And I was thinking, oh, but you're gonna do these portraits and paintings that are going to be in these galleries and museums and things like that. And it was just like, that's not it for me. I do like doing exhibitions, but there's something missing. And then I discovered, as I was creating, I discovered the impact that art had on me. And so I went down the road of arts and health and looking at the impact that the arts can make on our health and well-being. And again, it was just like an aha moment. Oh my gosh, this is it. And so I started doing workshops with art and people who were living with dementia. I mean, I started first on my mum. It was like, by then, mum was showing signs of, she couldn't be left on her own for as long as she was. She lived on her own and she needed somebody there. And we got her into a daycare center because it was just like, you need to do some activities. And it was not selfish on my part. So mum would go to the daycare center and I was concerned about what she was complaining about. She'd say, oh, they make me work and do all these things. And, it's just filled with old people. And it was just like, when I went with her and it was just like, yeah, mum, they're around the same age as you. And the work that they're getting you to do is just activities. So I said to them, are you interested in art activities? And long story short, they said yes. And I started, doing workshops there. So that kind of really laid the foundation for me to see that, people who are living with dementia can take part in an activity and gain such a joy. So there was such a joy, and they'd be talking about their work, their lives, as they sat there creating and painting, or adding paper collage, doing collage, and just being in a relaxed environment. And so I've just kind of continued that, teaching people how to be more creative, encouraging people to be creative, and trying to say, you can look at a painting and think, oh my gosh, that's so difficult. But again, or a piece of art. But then it's, if you break it down, what colors did people use? What tools are people using? And then you think about the process. So I show people, it's about the process, that, the intention, and that's kind of some of the things that I teach now. Like, you don't have to create a perfect piece of art in one sitting. You can lay down the foundations, you can lay down some paper, and that might be all you have time to do. Around 2 years after I was made redundant, I started a blog, and then I started just sharing the early experiences I was going through with mum, and, being, forgetful of, as I was saying, she's getting kind of forgetful, or she would say, somebody's moved this, or, accuse us of things. And it'd be like, oh, so something really is happening. So I'd chart that experience, and started writing about that on my blog. But I also saw that helped other people. So other people were leaving comments like, I'm going through the same thing. And it was just like, wow, me just sharing what's on my heart is helping somebody else. When I changed the way I look at my art, and as I say, I started saying to myself, well, God, what is it you want me to do? Podcast, I've always wanted to do a podcast. And then it was like, suddenly I had this drive, I've got to do a podcast. And that was God working through me, because, again, I did it for, I've taken a break from it, but I did it for nearly 2 years. And, I was just sharing again what was on my heart, what I was going through, encouragement, encouraging people, especially those who were caring for elderly relatives, and being more specific, who had dementia, that you can still try and carve out a life for yourself. you know, or as carers, how can you take 5 minutes if that's all you've got and do something creative? So again, or how can you take a creative activity and share that with the person that you're caring for? Because that's what I then started to do with mum. It was just like, I really need to do some art, but I've got to look after mum. And then I turned to her one day and I said, oh, do you want to draw a picture? And she was like, okay. And I was thinking to myself, how is it that easy? You know, how is it? Because normally, you know, you'd say, mum, do you want to do something? She'd say, no, I've got work to do. And you'd be like, but mum, you don't work in, you know, you're not doing any work. You know, oh, I've got loads of ironing to do. But you're not ironing for work. So it was, you know, oh my gosh, you're going to do some art, mum? Okay, come on then, let's go. And that was just like, that gave me that first sitting. She sat there for an hour and a half just drawing. And it was just like, my goodness, I had so an hour and a half break after, like, you know, trying to get her to do all these different things and, you know, trying to entertain her and encourage her to do things. And all it took was, do you want to draw a picture? And she was happy. So just building on that. And again, you know, saying, well, Lord, what is it you want me to do? I often feel, I mean, I write down all my ideas. It's almost like God's downloading. He's just like emptying a box and saying, here, Amanda, do all of this. But this box, there's never an end to the things that are coming through. It's like there's always an idea. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. Oh my gosh, the poetry. Like, you know, I've been writing poetry for over 20 years, but never did anything with it. And I typed them up, and the papers were going yellow. It was just like, you know, some of them, it was just like, and I just thought to myself, you know, it's time now to create a book. I mean, you were an inspiration because you did yours, and a couple of people I know, other people kind of published their book, and I was just like, I could publish a book. And as I've been saying, the other interview I did, you know, the process has become a lot more easier for you to publish a book. It doesn't cost you anything, so why not do it? And I was sharing with people, it was just like, you know, I'm not doing it because I want to become, you know, New York Times bestseller. I'm doing it because I know that there are people out there who may be encouraged, and I've done it. You know, I've taken what was a pile of papers and I put it into a book that somebody else can share. And that achievement is something that means so much to me. And it's another thing that I can say, see, Lord, yeah, look, I've done it now. But I'm being reminded that, well, there's other stories now that I've put on your heart that you now need to find the time to do. So it's just like a constant creative, I don't know, train that is just constantly, there's so many things that I want to now do. And I think through losing mum as well, that was also the, you know, look, mum was 99 and she's no longer physically here with you now. You weren't able to say, look, mum, I've produced a book. But, you know, you never know who's going to be the next person to go, or how long I've got left. So there's no time to waste in, you know, you say you want to do this, then do it. You know, what's stopping you? Okay, work around it, work through it. And as I say, you know, you have also been a real encouragement, and just in your determination to do things. I mean, the one-handed gardener, it's just like, look at that, you know, I complain about this and that. And it's just like, despite you have, you know, done something that you enjoy. And it's just like, this is just, it's just as I say, it's just a real encouragement to see what you are accomplishing through your walk, that, people we take for granted. Like, I've taken so many things for granted, and I had to remind myself that You know, the space that you have even to grow is to be a blessing. You have been blessed with this. You're a steward of this space. So
Yeah.
you have to use it wisely. You have to, you know, there are projects that I would like to do, like creating, you know, food boxes and things like that. And if you can grow something that you can share with somebody else, or like sharing my ideas, that's why I create the channel, to share how simple it is. You know, even if you've just got a pot, you can put some seeds in there and grow something.
You said with your mother and her sickness and losing your job that you decide to go in art. And sometimes when we stay on a course, our own course, and the Lord do not want you on that course, He's going to make sure that He kicks you out. So you have to do what
Hmm.
He said. So,
Hmm.
losing your job was not an accident, not a coincidence.
Hmm.
It was a mandate from the
Hmm.
Lord. So, looking around, did you say, yes, there's a need for art and help in Barbados, England, the world? Did you say, okay, I want this to be this to help other persons with art and help?
Yeah. Um, to be truthful, I didn't want to get into arts and health. I struggled. And like, just as you say, I think that's what God wanted me to get into, because I was just like, okay, all right, but I do want to make millions. I do want to make millions selling my art. I really didn't want to get into arts and health, but I saw that there was a need. I was like, okay, I have to deal with, I have to find something that will, that mum can do. Mum's going to a daycare center, so I want to keep an eye on her. So that's the only way I can keep an eye on her, by running these art workshops with people with dementia. And I'd be like, but Lord, you know, I don't want to do arts and health. You know, I want to have an agent. I want to, you know, get my work out there. And time and time again, opportunities would arise that I couldn't say no to. So I joined a carers group, and then I was asked as part of this carers group to talk to social workers about my experience. But part of my experience was dealing with arts and dementia. So I had to tell them about the arts and dementia. And then I got called to do these talks for a borough. So in East London, I was asked to come and do regular talks, say once a month, to these social workers. So then I had to think, well, what am I going to talk about? And it was just like, okay, well, it is about being a carer, but how do I manage my time as a carer? I have to talk about the arts. So it was just like, I'm constantly talking about arts and health, and how arts can impact, and how, you know, in terms of the social workers' relationship with carers, and things that I've been working on. And then I got asked to talk at conferences, and it was just like, this is ridiculous, Lord. This is ridiculous. So I then had to I just said, okay, look, if this is what you want me to do, then I'll do it. Um, so I began, as I say, talking at conferences, and the audiences got bigger. And I had to look at ways in which I could create the course itself and the lessons. And it was just like, I would do it, and people, the feedback I would get was just like, oh, that was amazing, that was so lovely. And it was just like, this is something that I didn't want to do. But as I say, I started to embrace it. And when we um, thought of made the decision to come to Barbados, I connected with the Alzheimer's Association here. Um, Arts and health in Barbados, we're not really, when I first came, it was just about dementia. It was just about how can you express to somebody what somebody living with dementia may be feeling. So I looked at the carer's experience, but I also interjected, okay, well, here are some things, some activities that you can do with somebody who's living with dementia. The support here for people, for carers, it may have changed. I mean, I was with the Alzheimer's Association for about 3 to 4 years, and did a lot of, talks. But as I say, a lot of the talks were just about, okay, here are some activities that I do, but the main body of the talk was people with dementia can still be, there's still a lot of wisdom in them. There's still, you can communicate, they can still learn. There's so many things that you can get from that relationship that needs to be given a chance. So yeah, I've embraced the arts and health, and I've seen how it helped me. Like when I closely looked at, well, when you was caring for mum, when you had to drive down there, I'd stay 3 or 4 nights there, and back and forward from home. It was just like art was the thing that got you through. Art was the thing that, you were able to spend 5 minutes. God enabled you to see different things and to come up with different things and to be able to see, well, how can I make this work for me or for mum? So again, just jumped in. And one of the main things that I do on my platform, the course platform, is about how we can use art to express the things we may not be able to verbalize. How can I, there may be colors that I use because I'm trying to get across that I'm feeling either confused or angry, or I don't know how I feel, so I'm just going to put this down. And art and creativity helps us to express so many things. So yeah, God took me down a path that it was just like, yeah, I didn't want to do arts and health, but I realized that this is where, looking at the different ways in which we can use creativity is where I need to be, is where it feels like home, is where I feel most at ease. And there's still challenges, but, it's like, there's always a solution. There's always oh, I didn't know that. Or, oh, here's a new thing that I can add. So it's been, it's been a journey, but it's definitely been a rewarding journey, and all the people that I came across here who was, working within the field of dementia, and there are a lot more artists now who not necessarily say they deal with arts and health, but there's elements of the work that they do that somebody who is a carer or who is being cared for can actually take part in. So those are the kind of things that I'm trying to develop a bit more. How, what resources can we give now to artists who say may want to be involved in arts and health, or art therapy, say, what resources can we provide, or I provide, and what learning materials, or, resources am I able to develop to share with other people.
I love this. The art and health is a good idea for Barbados. I'm an artist too, but I don't keep up with it because I'm doing other things. But I love art, and anything with art, I will always support and push. So I really want this to take off and help Barbadians especially. So can you take some time now to share all of your businesses, your ideas, and things that you want to do with the viewers?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to have my own course platform and create my own like art university. So I've been able to do that and create an online platform where I teach and share lessons. I've got three I've got 3 free lessons and 4 paid lessons. So I encourage people, even if you don't have any money, you can come onto the site and there are lessons that you can do. And what I try and do is give people skills that they can take away. It's not you just come and paint a face. It's what are the what other skills am I going to need to paint this space? I'm going to need to know how to mix colors, or lay down papers in a certain way, composition or whatever. So try and give people skills that they can take away. So that's the course platform that's been growing now I've been doing it for the last 2 years on my own. I also teach on other platforms, so collaborate with other artists. So there may be, like, say, 20 artists all producing a lesson for a particular course. So I've been doing that for 5 years, and I've got two, I think two is going to be starting next year, still in development. I create sculptures, so they're combined with either clay and fabric. I also make my own clay. I make a paper clay, which once dried is as hard as, it doesn't need firing, and it's hard. You can drop it and it won't break. So I've developed my own paper clay that I use as well. I do textile work for my love of textiles and beading. So I do a few projects, and I've got a few courses coming up that I want to create with, it's called slow stitching. So I create art pieces in textile and use beading and paint my own fabric. I recently started as well to look at the natural dyes that I can get from my garden and use in my work. Because I'd always thought to myself, if you were suddenly unable to buy in certain supplies, what were the traditional methods that have been used? So when I thought of the clay, there are traditional methods of firing the clay, creating your own fire pit, your kiln, whatever, or creating a hole in the ground and covering it and putting your clay pieces. So it was important for me, especially with a garden, to be able to say, okay, well, I mean, I don't have a fire pit yet, but it was just like, well, what if you couldn't get any clay? I mean, okay, we're on a clay soil, so we can, access clay from Barbados itself. But so that's where I was looking at paper clay. And then it was just like, oh, paper, recycling. I love showing how you can reuse products or change its use. And so paper was one. How can I create something from paper? So again, that's where the paper clay came from. If I was suddenly unable to get clay, I've got paper around me. I can make my own. What else do I do? So I did start a podcast. As I say, it's on a temporary break because there were so many things I wanted to do at the time. I was exhibiting and all of this kind of stuff. So on the podcast, what I do is just share encouraging words. I have a couple of things I call inspirational shorts, and they're short reminders of, it's really what God sees in you, but it's taking a word and saying, inspire, and how we can use that word and use it for ourselves and say, we're inspired by other things, but sometimes when people look at you, they're inspired as well. So how can you do more of that to encourage somebody? Or what can you do to encourage somebody? It could be something that you pay no mind, you don't think, but I mean, somebody wrote to me yesterday about the book that I've just, not too long published, my book of poems. And they were saying, they also write, but they never thought their work was any good. And it was just like, I thought to myself, gosh, yeah, I thought that. I used to think that. But it was just like, every word that comes out is going to inspire somebody else. It might touch them, it might help them think through something. And just like this woman said, I would, I'm going to revisit my poems and maybe think about publishing them. And I was just like, oh my gosh, look, just that just that following through and creating your book of poems has encouraged somebody else to maybe do the same. And you never know, the work that she's created might go on to impact, how many lives, we don't know. So I have an art YouTube channel where I share process of working in art journals. I publish 3 times a week, so I show art journals, I do book reviews, and I also have a videos that I call Material Mondays, where I show you how to work with materials, or how I work with materials. What else? The gardening channel. So I'm just doing everything that I'm inspired, and the things that are coming next. That's why I write everything down. So I've got more courses that I want to create. I've got more books that I want to bring out. I've got some children's books that I've written that I want to illustrate. So I'm thinking about, well, I'm trying to make room for them. They're all kind of calling me because they see that the poetry book's done now, so there's room now for the next one. So probably the next book that I'll probably do is, well, there's a children's book, there's a book on Alzheimer's, and looking at what activities you can use for somebody with Alzheimer's, and what you can do as a carer as well. And it doesn't necessarily just need to be for Alzheimer's. It's, all the tips for carers is for any carer. And I'd love to create my own. I've got a diary that I'd love to. I came across a diary the year that I was made redundant, and it was filled with beautiful images, quotes, and prompts. And I still have this journal today, and it was just like, I'd really love to produce one of these, with my own artwork, and the things that I've been doing over the years that I know that would encourage some other people. But yeah, that's kind of like all the things that, and I create content out of the things that I'm doing. So I post on all the channels, post my work on all the channels, and have a website that shares all of that as well.
And I will have everything, all Amanda's socials in the description on YouTube and on podcast streaming services. And you have heard how much she is doing and filling her days with what the Lord tells her to fill it with. You're not doing anything out of your mind just so the Lord told you to do this and that, and you are following. What do you see for your life in 5 years?
Oh, yes. I think it's important to have a 5-year plan and a yearly plan, and a daily plan, and a monthly plan. So those are the things that I've been doing. Okay, what we're doing today, what we're doing for the end of the year, what needs to be done next year. So in 5 years' time, what I would like to have is the opportunity to provide others with employment. So to grow, you can only be a one-woman show for so long. So I want my course platform to grow. I want more courses. I want to be able to offer the opportunity for people who can't necessarily have their own course platform, but would like to create a course, that I could be able to provide a platform for them. I would like to have at least 4 or 5 books published by then and illustrated. I would like to do a bit more traveling, I think, by then, and to be talking more about the arts and health, and collaborating more with people in physical spaces, as opposed to, we're doing it online, but to be able to collaborate and say, okay, well, we're doing this in I don't know, wherever around the world. Yeah, to have a team of people that help me manage the business. I'm gonna be more, do more writing. Um, what else? The artwork. I've got lots of art projects that I want to complete. I'm looking at quite a few of them at the moment. But yeah, so in fact, though, I think time is going so quickly. Like this, the years just rolling past. So in 5 years, looking back, I would like to have said, yeah, I published all those books. Um, there's about 14 book ideas that I have that I was saying to myself, yeah, I want to just do them all now. But it was just like, no, when you think about it, that's like a 4 year, 5 year, even if you did like 3 books a year. Um, so yeah, I'd like to look back and say, okay, yeah, I published the books and there are others, in tow that I was able to really have a big impact on the arts and health and and the lives of carers and the lives of people who are living with, say, dementia. Um, and that, some of the practices people have, taken up and there are resources there for them. I'd also like to have a foundation as well, foundation that can provide people with not only like startup funds, but like mentorship um, and practical kind of support and work for their idea. So it helps them work through it. They've got an idea, but they don't, they can't go to the bank or wherever. They've got nowhere else to go, and it doesn't matter whether they're, because you've got some people who may be homeless, and this idea is to help get them out of being homeless, and it will help impact other people. So even if you're homeless, you know, you can come to the foundation and say, this is my idea. You'll get support in writing your plan, seeing it through, getting the plan off the ground, and then the support to put it into motion. So I'd like to be able to fund a foundation that we could do that and help people who've got creative ideas, who've got ideas that they want to, so you're sowing the seed into somebody and seeing that grow, and they're growing their idea and then impacting on others. So giving back. And I've just recently revisited how I'm spending my time. So I think I started with that, how I'm planning my time. How do I use my 24 hours? Um, I'm getting up a bit earlier. I'm trying to fit more into the day. And I'm trying to use my time a bit more wisely so that I can, get some of these ideas that are just like waiting to be birthed, get them birthed. There's a feeling that I feel it's like it's not that I'm running out of time, but we are. Every day we get closer to the day that we breathe our last breath, and so it's just like a feeling that I have to. It's a responsibility. I think as creatives we have a responsibility to do the things that have been on our hearts. And we cannot use the excuse that I'm too tired now, or I can't do it now, or there's not enough time, or, you have to make the time. And so all the dreams and plans that I've got there waiting, it's just like I have the responsibility to make the time, see how I'm using my time and how I can use it better. So again, I'm learning from others who have, found ways to, be more productive and all of that. So, but yeah, it's the drive. I'm feeling driven to share because you never know who might be impacted by what you share, what God's given you to share. Again, because I said to God, Lord, just, come into my studio and just take over, whatever you want me to create, I will create. So I have no excuse. It's like I have an abundance of ideas that flow that he's given me. And I have so many that I having to write them down. And I've got books of ideas. And it's just like, now you it's finding the time to do it and sitting down and doing it and seeing what you're doing that actually, well, no, that is a waste of time, in the sense of, like you can get with social media now, you can get drawn in.
Yeah.
So you have to say, no, I'm here to share this. I will encourage other people by, saying that's fantastic, well done, that's beautiful. So I encourage others, but I'm not going to get sucked into the things that, you scroll and you think you're caught up in a spiral of stories that are not edifying and are not productive, or, binge watching stuff. Social media has kind of designed itself to be binge watched. So, before you know it, 45 minutes, an hour's passed, and you think, well, I didn't actually see what I was supposed to see. I didn't actually go to the channel I was supposed to go to, but I've seen all these other people, as I'm scrolling through. So yeah, my main aim now is how I'm using my time to get all the things that God has placed on my heart and that have been dreams of mine for years. Yeah, just trying to be inspirational. I realize one of my missions is to be an encourager. I think that's always been, and it came to me, God reminded me, you know, a couple of weeks ago, he reminded me that is part of your mission, to encourage. So everything you do, is it encouraging? What you say, is it encouraging? Yeah. So that's when I look back in 5 years, it'll be those kind of things.
Oh, a lot. That's a lot. And once the Lord is in it, you will achieve it. This is your last question. What legacy do you want to leave for your family and the world?
The legacy, I think that's important as well. That's really important. I want people to be able to. So it's out of the plan. So it's out of what I'm trying to do now, leading up to these 5 years. That when people think about my work, they're inspired, they're encouraged. That my foundation will go on, even though I'm no longer there. That the words, is it being using technology is really important. So every word that God has given me to share, that I've shared it either on video or audio or in a written form, that you will be able to pick up one of my books and be inspired, that you'll be able to watch a video, any video you watch, you'll be inspired, or any podcast you hear will be inspired. And that even the work will encourage them to be their best self, to take a leap of faith, that they can see how God's worked in my life, that they can see that there's nothing that I did or could have done that I did within my own strength. When I did try and do it in my own strength, you weren't impacted as much. And I can say, these last, say, 5-6 years, where I've just said I'm not going to do it in my own strength anymore. God's given me the strength and he's using me. So and seeing the difference. So yeah, those are the kind of legacies that my great grandchildren will be able to say, gosh, our great grandmother was awesome. And she's still, her teachings are still, there. The way she encouraged, the way she inspired, the way she motivated is motivating me to be a better person, and me to follow what God has wanted me to follow. So yeah.
Ah, thank you so much. Your journey, your story, your business, everything that you have been a part of is very inspiring and encouraging. And I wish you all the best. Keep God in the forefront and you will never fall. You will never fail. You will always keep, keep the light of God always burning. So thank you very much. And you have heard Amanda, and I thank you so much for being a part of the Steps to Leap podcast, and I hope the best for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Welcome. And you can follow this podcast on Rochelle's Blessing on YouTube or any podcast streaming services. So until next time, be brave, be bold, and believe you can make steps to lead. Blessings.